to being a strange thing. So he said, give glad tidings to strangers. We are thankful for this. This is a lot. Thank you. We are thankful to you, to people, because we want to show our thankfulness to God. And as many of you here today who may have been strangers to us before today, and we may have passed each other on the road, we might have seen each other in the stores, and we were strangers then. Today, that you stand with us and say you are not alone, you are with us. You are no longer strangers to us. You are with us now. We are with you. One of the pivotal moments in the history of our faith was an event called the Hijrah. And the Hijrah was a process of migration. The Muslims left their homeland and moved to what was a foreign land at that time. They moved because of oppression. They did not have the liberty to pursue their faith, to practice their faith, to speak their mind. So they moved on. And a lot of Muslims know of this event because the Muslims started to count their calendar from that event, from the beginning of that event. But before that one, that was not the first hijrah. That was not the first migration. Prior to that migration, which we all, the Muslims, know about, where the Muslims moved from Mecca to Medina, there was a migration first, when a group of Muslims who had been so brutally oppressed that the Prophet said to them, leave this place, you cannot survive. Go to Abyssinia. There is there a Christian king. He is just, and you will be free to practice there. And this group of Muslims migrated. They went to Abyssinia, and they immersed themselves with the people, and they were practicing. Then a group of their oppressors followed them to Abyssinia and started a campaign of character assassination against them, telling the people, these people will ruin your society. Send them out of your society. They should not be here. These words got to the king of Abyssinia, a Christian king. And he called them to the court and asked, state your case. And the people who were oppressing the Muslims stated their case. Oh, these people, those people, they're not the kind of people you want. They are horrible people. And then they asked the Muslims to state their case. And the Muslims, they did. And when they were done, in one of the most eloquent speeches that I cannot repeat because of time, the Christian king of Abyssinia walks up to the leader of the Muslims. And in the narration, he takes his staff and he draws a thin line in the sand and says, what is between you and I is no more than this line in the sand. We are the same. Go and practice. And the Muslims, they went and continued to practice in Abyssinia, that till today, the descendants of some of those Muslims are still there in Ethiopia today. We say, as that line was between the sand, was in the sand, the difference between you and us isn't that much different from that time. We say that as you stand with us today, know that we are Harrisonburg. We are grateful to be part of this community. We are grateful to be part of this society. We are grateful to be part of this country. This country where we can practice freely. We can have liberty in this country. We are thankful for it. So we thank you for coming, and we thank you for your solidarity. And we, as we sometimes say in the part of in Africa, we hope that we do not repay this in kind. Thank you.
Invite Malia Damas to introduce our next speaker, but I wanted to mention something. Since this incident happened, we wanted to be just a local, unknown, invisible place here. The amount of coverage we got from Washington Post too, but the most interesting call I got before this event was from Voice of America, and they said that this is important. They would like to cover this and get some, about this event for their Urdu service in Pakistan. Because they wanted to show the solidarity between various faiths, and they wanted to really make a case what's happening here and how we can strengthen relations between various communities and between various nations. And so this is, as I mentioned, something unpleasant happened, but the results are much more positive than whoever did this ever dreamed of. Is Malia coming here? Okay. He would invite our next speaker and introduce our next speaker.
Good evening, everyone. Our next guest is well known in the community. Mr. Myron Osberger has served the Mennonite Ministries in many capacities over the years. In the past, they've included president of EMU from 1965 to 1980. Myron continues to be very active in the community at various capacities, leading national organizations of Christian faith. He's earned 5 degrees and is author of numerous articles and more than 20 books. It's an honor and a pleasure to welcome Myron Osberger.
My privilege to be here today and to join with Muslim friends that I have known and shared with. And just to give my witness, I'm here as a disciple of Jesus Christ, who taught us to love one another, who taught us to turn the other cheek when someone does violence to us. And that is not a surrender. Turning the other cheek is a strategy of operation. It is saying to the opponent, I don't have to treat you back the way you treated me. I'm free to treat you out of my own principles. And that is freedom. And Jesus taught us to live by this freedom and to treat people out of the principle of love. We live in a time where there is so much love of power that it is appalling. And what we need to discover is the power of love. We will never bring about a world of meaning by using violence such as being expressed even by our nation. But we're going to have to find the way to practice love and respect. As a disciple of Jesus, I'm deeply committed to the way of peace and nonviolence. You will catch that in my comments today, because I believe that this is the one way of affirming one another as those persons in humanity who share an equality to enrich one another. In the wee hours of the morning, the Spirit of the Lord gave me 3 words that I could use for my outline today. They are the words love, forgiveness, and justice. Love means that your life is intimately open to another. You don't close anyone out. Love means that you move beyond the issue to the person. You care more about the person than what he or she has done. You are interested in the well-being of persons. Love is a spirit of life. It is costly. It is not easy to love because it means you give yourself. But love is the way of building community. And love is the power and the dynamic to change lives. Hostility should be overcome by love. As Abraham Lincoln said, destroy your enemies by making friends out of them. So it is that we are called to live in love. The second word that I have is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not easy. Forgiveness is difficult. because it's costly to the one forgiving. The pain really happens inside of me or you as we forgive, because forgiveness means you release the other. That does not mean you endorse or approve what they have done, but it does mean that you know a better way, and you will forgive in the sense that you will release them, even though it means carrying the burden of what they did in yourself. Forgiveness is difficult because it means that I have to absorb my own anger, my own wrath on what he or she did, and not make them feel it. Release them, and let them know that I stand with open arms rather than closing them out. The third word I have is justice. One I think is too little understood in our society. Most people think of justice as paying back. No, I believe justice is correcting the problem. Justice is working to correct the problem. And I read this in the epistle of Romans, where God acted to correct our problem of estrangement by reconciling us. And it says very pointedly that he might be just in being the justifier of the one who believes in Jesus. That correction of the problem changes life's relationships. How do I practice justice in society? It is not by measuring the other's deed and trying to break out some kind of vengeance. We reach beyond the deed to the person. We say we want to correct this problem and make you a better person. And together we will be brothers and sisters. Let me conclude with a story that illustrates this meaning of reconciliation. Two brothers owned adjoining farms, one across the road from the other. But they had had a fallout, and they were angry and weren't speaking at each other, or to each other. One day, a young man came by the elder brother's house with a bag of tools. He said, "Do you have some work? I'd like a job." He said, "No, I have no work." "Oh, just a minute," he said. "You see that farm over there? That's my brother. We aren't talking. I've got work. There's a pile of lumber by the barn. You can build a fence 8 feet tall so that I don't have to look over there and see my brother." He even took a bulldozer and ran a ditch down through the field with water so that I can't walk back and forth. He said, "I have to go to town, and when I come back, I'll help you if you aren't finished." The older brother went off to town, and when he came back later, there was no fence there, no wall there at all. But he looked down in the pasture field, and there was a bridge across the stream. And his brother was coming down to the bridge, and he called out, "You are some brother, that when we are at odds the way we are, you would build a bridge so that we can get together." That's our challenge, to build bridges of understanding, of love, of reconciliation. If we would invest in building bridges across cultures and peoples around the world, we would see a measure of peace that will never come by the use of power and violence to which so many people turn. We overcome what was done here in this act of violence by the love that reaches to the person, by the forgiveness that says, "I will release you," and by the justice that works to correct this problem of estrangement in our society. Thank you each.